Hello everyone, my name is Richard Thorn, and this year I was made a member of the Royal Institute for Painters in Watercolour. Coming right over everything. Remember, apart from the beach. And in this painting, as in the last painting, I'm using a £300 Archie's rough paper. And as we come down, I'm just going to add some of that green in there. And I want to remember to leave some of these waves. Thinning the paint as we come down. And again, leaving some broken edges. Okay, so there we've got the basic colour of the sea. And I forgot to draw in that extra wave here. So this will be white, and that will be the grey area. Everybody's got to have a grey area. And while that's drying at the top, I'm going to add in the more blue shadow of the cliff, just in this area here. And I'm using deep sea green, Schmink by Schmink. Okay, I think I'll take that right up. Mostly the people are in silhouette, so I can draw those on later when we've got all the colour information down. This will be my sort of underlying colour that will hopefully shine through and brighten up all the other subsequent washes. Okay, that's our first wash. I'm just going to put in a dark passage along here just to give me a sense of tonality so that I can judge the rest of the painting. So I'm going to use sea green for that, with a touch of Payne's grey. Again, I'm still using number 8 brush. There's a couple of little houses up here, so I'm just going to leave a vestige of something up there. Okay, so that's my cliff wall. What I need to do with the pier is I'm going to start off with just a basic red mixed with a bit of blue. Another colour will be added to this. And I just want to develop the greys in this area here, in these waves. So I'm going to use a Sennelier grey and a tiny touch, well, I'll drop in some cadmium yellow into that. I'm going to play that grey down with some King's Blue light. We've got a nice mid sort of pencil grey. Again, using the 8 brush. Now this, if you use the side of the brush like this, it can create some quite nice broken textures, especially when it runs out of paint. And we can keep those in. There, quite a nice textural feel to that. Just drop in some little bit of cadmium yellow there, just so it's picking up the colour of the beach. And here is going to be a different ball game. We're going to try and create textures with same colour, but just using the side for the brush dabbed on, so we're creating broken texture.
I hope you're enjoying this watercolor lesson. On our channel, we always share watercolor lessons from the world's top artists. And today, we have something special for you. Follow the link in the video description and sign up for a free online masterclass with another global watercolor star.
And I'm pointing the brush in the direction of the wave to give that sense of rushing in. I want a division line between this white wave and the rest of the sea, so I'm going to carry on doing that kind of motion. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I quite like these linear lines coming in. And get some blue going here to delineate the edge of the wave. Okay, we've almost cracked that one. Right, now we need some texture on the beach. Okay, so I'm going to darken the beach now, and for that I'm going to use raw umber mixed with the Sennelier grey and a little bit of the raw umber mixed with red, because I want that warmth in the beach. So I'm not going to cover it all over, I'm going to leave little passages. Use some grey down here. And hopefully that grey will a little bit of pink in there. The legs seem to darken as they come down. I want to leave a little division line between the two legs so that it's like the back of her legs catching the sun. I'm kind of putting it all over because the head colours can be darkened later on. We're just getting the basic tones for the body here. I'm going to use a smaller brush. I'm going to use my number 2 sable just to get some details. Just touching some along this shoreline. Some of those are a bit standy outy, so I'll just play them back a bit, damp them down a bit. A few tiny more highlights. Let's put this hat on. The good thing about this painting is that there is a lot of contrast and a lot of dark passages which really do show off the brighter colours, and they don't have to be that bright to be shown off because the dark is doing that work for the colour, if you know what I mean. So that green tree at the back is, yes, fairly bright colour, but it's not the brightest star in the firmament. And also you've got the variation of the reds going right through the painting, and these sort of buff colours of the trees on the far left, which are left fairly sort of natural, not too intense, because it doesn't have to be. You've got the dark trees and the dark shadows to show off those elements of light.
And speaking of the technical aspects here, we see that there's some probably spattering, and then there are also a lot of lines. How have you painted these lines, or have you masked anything in this painting?
I didn't mask any. Well, I did actually. I masked out the middle tree there, the little one,
This
which
one?
has got a big branch. Yes, that one, and a few in the background, as you can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, this
But
one's also.
it's very minimal. The rest was done with gouache, and I use my famous, if I can find it. Right, it's not famous, but it's famous to me. It's a dip pen. I don't know if you can see that. And I dip that in the watercolor or the gouache, and use that to draw very fine lines. You can also use a bamboo stick, or some people use rigger brushes. I've never found rigger brushes fine enough, but used in expert hands, they're probably better than what I can use. But I just love using this pen because it's like drawing. I can draw better with it. So and the texture in the photograph, in the painting, is done mainly with spatter work and stippling. Um, I I get some colour, either red or white or whatever these foreground bushes contain, and spatter on and stipple, so I can actually make a shape with the stippling. And I just sort of go on like that, building up, and then maybe adding some more darks, and then it's a sort of to and fro process because the gouache is opaque and you can sort of work back and forth then. So this isn't actually a watercolor painting, it's a watercolor ink painting, but it's the same with watercolor. I mean, if I hadn't have done that with ink, I would have used watercolor and gouache. Whereas with the ink, you've got the addition of the white ink to be able to make these sort of lighter highlights.
So many technical tips. I'm like, why do I have to? I want to take notes.
I'm trying to make I'm trying to make it simple.
You are making it interesting. I want the
But
recording of this. Anyways, let me read some questions in the chat. First and foremost, we had some questions about regarding masking fluid, and now we know you sometimes use it, but you have alternatives. You sometimes use gouache, you sometimes use ink for highlights. And then we have a question from Julia. What are your favorite color mix for beautiful, rich gray tones? Do you have one, or does that vary depending on the palette you choose for a specific subject?
green tones, did you say?
Gray, um,
Gray,
beautiful,
gray tone.
rich gray tones. Which
Well,
you
I
could
have
argue that you use a lot in this one, or you could argue that you don't use a lot of grays, depending on how you see things.
I use various grades. There's one by Old Holland called King's Blue Light, and there's a King's Blue Dark as well, which are very nice. They're sort of like almost like a pencil grey, which are very nice to mix with either cobalt or Payne's grey, or maybe a permanent mauve to create a darker grey. But I use those three greys as a kind of former to be able to go
Mm,
either way,
mm,
either darker or warmer. Um, Payne's grey, as you can see, is in some of the trees there. Um, but a little bit of cobalt in there too, just to give it a bit of colour. I think Payne's grey is probably a little bit colourless, if you know what I mean. So I either mix permanent mauves or a cobalt or maybe even a red in there, depending on what kind of dark shadow colour I want.
We have another technical aspect, and that is regarding the shadows versus lights on these foreground trees. The question is if you used any lifting in creating the lights, or did you just leave
Yeah,
them
and
by doing
I
negative painting?
yeah, I lifted those colours off, and then went over the whole tree with that sort of browny green colour, so that some of the shadows, the hard lines of the shadows, diffused over the wash. Um, but I had to do that when it was sort of um, almost dry, because when ink is dry, you can't lift it off very well, so it needs to be moist. So I you know, um, some of it looks wet in wet, but it's not. So you can see some of the shadows have got lost and found edges. Some are harder shapes, and it's those variation in textures that I like to create on trees, which you're never quite sure where the shadow starts or where it ends. I was quite pleased with those actually,
Mm.
even though I said so myself.
And before you paint, we have some more technical questions. Let's save some of those and move on. So I have saved some of the questions in the chat.
Okay.
And let's move on to this piece just to see a completely different example of trees and green and
Yeah.
bright colors. Very different color choices and also very different texture and energy of this one.
Yeah. Well, this painting was nearly all stipple or spatter work. I think I masked out the tree on the right, um, but the rest of it was pretty much, And when you stipple and you spatter, it's got to be done knowing the shape that it's going to leave. I'm very aware of the shapes. Like if you look on the left of the painting, you see those boughs coming in of green.
Do you mean
Yes,
these light ones?
yes.
Mm.
I'm sort of very aware that I want those shapes to be seen. And even up in the top part of the sort of more right hand tree, that one, I've stippled in shapes. I'm aware of the shapes that I'm making and leaving, um, so that they sort of follow, the boughs of the trees and the sort of roundness of the tree. So stippling and spattering are sort of art in itself, really. You've got to remember what, the shapes that you're making and the negative shapes that they're making too. Um, so I think you'll probably see in the demonstration some examples of stipple work and spatter work, which
Yeah.
will be helpful to understand that principle.
And another comment that I have on both this one and the one with the bluish flowers is that we often are told that you can mix yellow and blue and then you will get green. But this level of bright green you can't get by mixing cobalt blue and primary yellow. You need lemon yellow and phthalo greens to get this level of vibrancy. What are your thoughts
Yes.
on these rules that are sometimes very much hindering the
Well,
brightness that we
again,
might want?
there's many manufacturers out there that are producing wonderful colors. I like to use Sennelier, um, Old Holland, Schmink, and they've all got these just beautiful yellows. There's, I think, Sennelier do a May green and a bright yellow green. And those are the ones that, again, I put down in my first wash. And they shine through. You can see in the middle section of the bottom part of the painting here, in between the path and the little creek, there's the brightest green right at the bottom. And that's virtually just one wash with a little bit of green put on top. And you can really, I mean, it's just so vibrant. It's like you could eat it.
Yeah,
And
love me some green.
those, I see those greens in nature, and it's taken me years to find out what colours will make that, because I too, I for a long time I used to use lemon yellow, and I wondered why I wasn't actually getting the yellows that I wanted until I discovered these other greens, these yellow greens and vibrant greens, and then it all started to take off for me.